Well, good afternoon or good evening, my dear friends. And that magic moment has come again with the Bill Crane Report with Chris Gleason is on the air. So stop whatever you're doing, get pads and paper and pencils so you can write down some of the stuff you're going to hear today. Some really good stuff. I tell you, I've got a few things to start off with, but Christine has something of interest for us all. Tell us about it, Christine.
Well, did you know that last week was Sunshine Week? I know we're getting sunshine today, but this is a special week that they had sponsored by the American Society of News Editors and Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. And it tries to update. It spends a week doing panel discussions and things like that, updating people about how important it is that there's a freedom of the press. And so you probably know there are open meeting laws here in Massachusetts, and perhaps you'd like to hear a few specifics about it. When two or more people meet to do government business, they have to notify the public about 72 hours in advance of the location and the agenda, and that includes the updating of the agenda too. When they meet, they can go into an executive session, which is secret and is not publicized or set out to the public. But during those executive meetings, they have to be very specific about what they're discussing, and they can't discuss anything about money. If they do discuss anything about money, it still has to be approved at a town meeting. The problem is that some people feel that these open meeting laws are being avoided or worked around. So they do have, if you go online to MassGov, a form that you can fill out registering your complaint. They said in this article presented by the Country Gazette that Massachusetts has a new law that exempts the legislation, the judiciary, and the governor from some of these laws. There are lots of exemptions to these laws, and there's about 40 pages long. But we hope that you do keep informed about what the government is doing, so there's a lot of danger in not knowing. Thank you.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and that was extremely well said. And you know what? One of the things that I feel very strongly about is an educated electorate. And how does that happen? By staying involved, by knowing what's going on. Do you think in Norfolk, and I guess Norfolk could pass for an average town, do you think that that's true in Norfolk? Do you think that we have an educated electorate that is interested and turned on with what's going on?
Well, judging for the number of people that show up for the town meeting, I would say no.
Do you know that one of, in my mind, the true tragedies that I have witnessed was the demise of the Norfolk Boomerang newspaper. Matt was not shy about calling him like he saw him. And he had an editorialist, I forget who it was, who was also really on the ball. But Matt brought out a lot of the things the town was doing, the town was planning, that had happened, and reported them. And we don't have an organ for that now.
And what this article in the Gazette was trying to bring out, that the press is now getting a difficult time getting a hold of that information to present it to the public.
Yeah, and you know what? It's distressing. I'll carry it a step further. You know what I am really afraid of? I don't know. The age of 77, I'm not sure that I have to worry that much about it. But a jury of our peers.
Oh, and the peers aren't educated?
The peers rarely speak English anymore. No. The schools are not educating people worth a darn unless you pay $35,000 a year or $40,000 a year and send your kid out to Nobles and Greeno or something of that nature. I mean, but the public school systems, you know, and I forget who said it the other day, but it was someone that was commenting on it and said, and who knows what the public schools are up to these days. I really worry about having a jury pool of 12 men and women who could sit there and understand the issues of an action the court was taking, whether it was a lawsuit, whether it was a trial for drunken driving or hit and run or drug addicts or whatever. It just seems to me that I talk to people and I come away thinking to myself, I'm going to tell you a story. Folks, this show's not planned. I can tell you right now, we'll be all over the map here. But I had a boss at the Foxborough Company, long since passed away. And he was the boss of a packaging area. It was my first job at the Foxborough Company. Putting things in boxes and labeling them and sending them off to the stockroom. So we were talking one day, and he said to me, he says, you're Irish, right? I said, yeah. Did you watch TV last night? I said, no, what did I miss? He said, well, there was quite a show on Walt Disney. He said, about those leprechauns over in Ireland. He said, now, have you ever seen a leprechaun? And I started laughing. And I said, Pete, it's a fun thing. The leprechauns aren't real. He got mad as all get out at me and said, it's the truth. It's got to be the truth. It was on television, and it has to be the truth if you put it on television. Walt Disney would never lie.
Oh, gee.
Now I'm saying, at that point, I said to myself, you know, if he was on the jury, he might just well get the rope and hang me. But there are so many people that don't follow what goes on, are unaware of current events, unaware of the changing of laws, what we're all about as a country or as a state or as a town. That just, you know, oh, Norfolk, yeah, I live there. I go to Boston on the train, and I come home, and I'm usually home by 7, and we eat, and I go to bed. Well, that's it. You want him on a jury? I mean, I don't know. I don't know where we're going, but it's not the right direction.
Well, I have trouble following the news, and because I only get the headlines of the beginning of the story, and they don't follow through with the story or tell you what the conclusions are many times. It's just headline today, different headline today, different headline today. No details.
It's veneer. There's
Right.
no substance.
Right.
Yeah. It was like today watching I tried my best to get an accurate weather forecast for Wednesday, and you just couldn't get it. I mean, Tim Kelly on 840. Now, here's what today and tomorrow are going to be like. Now, Wednesday is another story, and later on in the broadcast, I'll talk about that.
And now we go to commercial break.
Right. And so you wait 15 minutes, 12 minutes for him to come back. And today he did it. He was disgusting. He came back, and he never once told us the timing of the storm. He said, stay tuned, because in the next segment, I'm going to talk about the timing and maybe some amounts.
Well, they're doing that so you keep on watching the channel.
Don't want you switching channels.
Oh, missing any of those commercials.
Yeah, that's right. Got to sell that Chef Boyardee spaghetti or whatever they're pushing. But that really rips my, it just bothers me, because you turn over to Channel 4, and I was hoping Eric Fisher was going to be on. He's pretty straight as far as the weather forecaster is concerned. But it wasn't. It was somebody else. And she just talked in circles, too. Now, in the next segment, we'll talk about... Then I went to the Weather Channel, and that was like a three-ring circus. They were laughing and joking and, you know, all that. Oh, man. But I just remembered what I was at the bank, and we were talking about people not understanding checking accounts and all that stuff. And the person I was talking to said, I don't know about you, but I was taught at Walpole High, and I received education from Miss Thayer about checking accounts, mortgages, loans, interest, buying a house, all of these things.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That somebody actually taught those.
And
it's unusual.
I had Miss Thayer, and I said, I know. I had Miss Thayer, and we went through all that stuff. And I said, they don't teach, and the bankers there said the same thing. People come in here, and they don't understand some of this stuff.
And they don't teach civics anymore.
No.
They don't understand the organization of the government.
That's right. Well, we have three parts of government. What are they? Let's see. It's the Cleveland Browns and the Boston Red Sox and Drug Enforcement Agency. Yeah, those are the three. I mean, that's probably a better answer than a lot of them would give, you know. But they also, Miss Thayer also taught us the stock market. What is a stock? How does that work? Do you know you're buying a piece of the company? What's important about dividends and stuff like that? 14 years old, and she's teaching us that. That has stuck with me all my life.
I forget what company they put out many years ago from now, because I've been retired like 15 years, say maybe 20 years ago. The stock market company wanted to educate fifth graders about the stock. And so they put out literature. I think it was a pilot program. And the kids were supposed to pick stocks, and they're supposed to learn how to do it. Well, as it comes out, what happened is Franklin was a winner. They earned the most money of all the places, the towns they went to. But I talked to the teacher whose student had won that, and they didn't win it on their own. Their parent chose it. And this is the winner of this whole pilot program. The kid didn't know what was going on. He went home, he said, what do I put my money in? The father said this, and it's a farce. Even when you do try it out, it's not sticking.
But you know, in 1954, I was in Miss Thayer's class, and we had that same exact exercise. But here's what she did. She said, I want you all to bring in the financial section from your family newspaper for Friday. Thursdays for Friday. And Friday, we're going to do some work on it. Well, she didn't tell you what the work was. She says, now, she said, I'm going to give you 15 minutes or 20 minutes to read the stock. And she explained it everywhere what the stock market was all about, the different prices, what they all meant, and all that stuff. Now, I want you to pick 5 stocks.
Well, you know what? Most teachers don't know themselves.
I know.
So how can they teach it?
Well, that's what the banker that was in this earlier conversation, that's what he said was, yeah, he said, I learned that in school. He said, I don't know what the devil they're doing in school these days. But they're not teaching things like that.
They set up and the mass curriculum, I don't know, because people have been changing it so much lately. They had media education as one of the strands you were supposed to teach. I didn't see anybody teach it. And that was, understanding how you just see a little section like you were talking about the Hillary when she had that presentation where they showed 3 or 4 people behind her, but the rest of the audience was empty. So people need to be educated that that's what the media can do.
Yeah. But they don't want to hear it. I mean, they're too busy with, I still think I should have hit an 8-iron on that last hole last weekend instead of a 7-iron. There isn't the interest that there was when I was a kid. I used to read newspapers when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I was interested in politics. I was interested in the country. And holy cow, kids today, and I blame the schools.
Well, I admit I don't keep up with the news because I get disgusted. I say, what can I do? I can't do anything, That's how I feel.
You can come on a panel show.
I can what?
Come on a panel show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we've got to get onto some other things.
Real business, huh?
I'm going to tell you something. Today, there's a University of Colorado study that was released of young people, showed 33% had ridden with an impaired driver in the last year.
Oh.
And the impairment of choice was marijuana, not alcohol. Yeah. That's a pretty darn scary. And AAA had done a study on impaired driving also, and what a percentage of accidents is caused by impaired driving.
Oh, yeah. Well, how much was the percent that you said?
33%.
33%.
That's 1 out of every 3 kids.
That's huge.
Is driven with an impaired driver. And now, they didn't ask the age of the impaired driver, but I'll be willing to bet you anything it was one of his peers from his age group.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Who else would he be going with, really?
Exactly, yeah. Folks, this is a multi-purpose show, and I try to enrich your lives in many different ways. Today, I'm going to tell you that I was sorting my books out, and I came across Kill Shot. Killshot, all one word, by Elmore Leonard, who was, he passed away a few years ago, but he was a prolific writer who wrote mystery/comedy stuff. Kill Shot is the funniest mystery novel you'll ever read. It is hilarious. So there's your tip for better living, folks. Kill Shot.
Getting back to that marijuana.
Yeah.
Over in Millis, in Medway area, they're talking about putting in a recreational marijuana facility. And when that happens, this town gets 2%. So I think that's unfair that the marijuana places, not that I don't think that they should be charged it, but I think it's an incentive. It makes it too attractive for towns to put in marijuana recreational facilities, and I don't think, I mean, ice cream places don't get that, tire places don't get, why should marijuana places provide an extra incentive to the town to have their building there?
You know, what is a marijuana recreation center?
Well, I would imagine it's a retail where you go in and you buy, and then you sit around these little cafe tables and
imbibe.
Right.
Yeah. They also bake oatmeal cookies with pot in them and stuff like that. You know, there's stuff to chew on and all that stuff. Yeah. So.
It's like a restaurant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how did these people get home afterwards?
Well, how do they get home when they drink alcohol at the bar?
Yeah. But if you're stopped, you can be tested for alcohol. There's no device to test you for driving impaired on marijuana.
I think they're working on it.
Yeah, I think they're working on it too, but who knows how effective it's going to. Listen, that thing will be in the courts forever. There'll be lawyers that will say, oh no, you can't do that, blah, 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 that people testifying against themselves. You know, we need more testing of the devices, blah, blah, blah. It'll be 4, 5, 6 years before something like that is approved.
Or standardized.
Yeah. You know, I think we're enabling people to imbibe in the leafy vegetable layer, and then afterwards go out and climb in a car and drive. And I don't think that's really what we want, but it's what's going to happen. Or maybe the police will be outside saying, "Are you fit to drive?" Or maybe the town will have a school bus there and take them home. I don't think so. Well, the treasurer of the state of Massachusetts, Deborah Goldberg, the lottery is floundering. The scratch tickets, they're not doing well.
Oh.
That's a very important part of income for the state of Massachusetts. So rather than her working on that, she is now deciding to help legislation work its way through by filing a bill that would prohibit the state's pension funds from investing in gun manufacturers or ammunition manufacturers. Seems to me she's got a full-time job. She's not a legislator. Let her get back to fixing the lottery. Mind your own beeswax, as Frank Burns would say. So, now, are you ready to get angry?
Oh, I don't know if I can get any more angry.
Well, there's a man on death row in Missouri. His name is Russell Bucklew.
Okay.
And his lawyer says, and I believe he's supposed to die tomorrow. He has a very rare medical condition that compromises the man's veins and causes multiple tumors in his head and throat. Now, he's scheduled to die by injection tomorrow night. But he suffers this affair that he's going to become a medical disaster and not die and suffer and all that stuff because of this disease he has or whatever it is.
What is his crime?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. According to court documents, Bucklew was angry at his girlfriend for leaving him and moving in with Michael Sanders of Cape Girardeau, which is the hometown of Rush Limbaugh, by the way. When So he tracked her down at Sanders' home in March of 1996. He killed Sanders in front of the woman, her 2 daughters, and Sanders' 2 sons, and then attacked the woman and drove her to a secluded area and raped her.
It seems like he's got logic. It seems like he's quite capable of thinking and planning. He doesn't seem to be
Well, I know you say that, but listen up to what else is going on. After a state trooper spotted Buckaloo's car, Buckaloo shot at the trooper but missed, court records say. Buckaloo later escaped from jail, hid in the home of his ex-girlfriend's mother, and beat her with a hammer.
His mental capacities are fine. If he can manage all that, escaping from jail.
Break out of jail.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with. I mean, maybe he can't do rocket science, but he certainly has had to been able to plan this.
Yeah. So, if we agree that capital punishment is the law of the land, I mean, have I picked out a dandy candidate for it? I mean, is this really the kind of guy that should get pardoned or should have his sentence reduced? And this is a monster.
Well, they're not protecting us if they can't handle him.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, is a state police trooper who's on paid leave because of questions about his fitness for duty during a late night shift this weekend. He was relieved of duty. The WBZ is saying on the news today it's because he was drunk on duty. So he obviously wasn't in any shape to protect us either, if this is true.
I'd be afraid he'd shoot me instead of the robber.
Well, here's another thing to raise your blood pressure. Nicholas Cruz killed 17 kids at Parkland High School. And yet, officials were so concerned about the mental stability of the student accused of last month's Florida school massacre, they decided he should be forcibly committed. But the recommendation was never acted upon. And now it's not clear who dropped the ball. But the school officials and a sheriff's deputy recommended he be involuntarily committed for mental evaluation. The documents show he had written the word kill in a notebook. Well, I've written kill in a notebook. Told a classmate he wanted to buy a gun and use it, and cut his arm supposedly in anger because he had broken up with a girlfriend. He told another student, he had drunk gasoline and was throwing up. Calls had even been made to the FBI about the possibility of Cruz using a gun at school. Documents were part of a psychological assessment initiated after Cruz's mother called Henderson Behavioral Health. The documents show a high school resource officer and 2 school counselors recommended he be committed to the for mental evaluation under Florida's Baker's Act. Such an involuntary commitment would have made a high obstacle towards him buying a weapon. No one knows why this didn't go forward. Who stopped it? I don't think there's much chance of finding out because all those people sort of coagulate together afterwards, and there's a barrier of silence.
But it seems that the top people often do not act on what has been told to them.
Bingo. Yep. And you know why? Oh, I want to be reelected next year. Or, gee, my son wants to get into Harvard. If I get in the middle of this harangue, it's going to, could harm him getting into Harvard.
And they don't want to take the responsibility.
They don't. They're a gutless bunch. It amazes me. They want these big jobs, and then they're paralyzed when they get there.
Right.
Well, I don't want to shake any tables. Something might fall on the floor. 2 million people have dropped off the food stamps program since President Trump was sworn in. That speaks to jobs that either have been created or pay that has been raised so that people get off the dole and go back to work. 2 million. There were some 300 Boston area politicians this weekend that had the St. Patrick's Day breakfast in South Boston. And it was an opportunity for all those attendees to bloviate at great length, tell lame, pointless jokes in a tasteless fashion, trying to make sport of one another. Imagine something, my dear friends. Imagine that invitations to this moronic event were only sent to honest politicians. If we were to place such a restriction, I wonder how many politicians would be able to show up. My guess is about 4. Here's something that really ought to talk you off. The collapsing bridge in Miami. Oh. That took 6 lives. I think that's the count they've got now is 6. And to me, last week is a metaphor for our country. We're not interested in doing things the best way, the proper way any longer. I suppose this bridge was built by the low bidder.
Oh, by law there has to be.
And he was forced to use at least 50% minority subcontractors, whether they were qualified or experienced or not. Of course, we're mandated by law, now in a seeming necessity, because of the corruption endemic in all levels of our federal, state, and local governments. Honesty, transparency, responsibility, and clear consciences are a thing of the past.
Exactly.
Perhaps the Chinese have the right idea with corruption. Root it out, prosecute them, give them long prison sentences, or execute them. And be done with the problem.
And the thing is, on that bridge, it's questionable whether they had a stress test or not that day. And the thing is, they don't even call in a stress test unless they are questionable about how good the bridge is.
And they were testing the cables. They overstressed them to see what would happen. Gee, did they figure it out, do you think?
But when they were doing the test, shouldn't they have put up signs and said, no entrance testing today?
Shouldn't they have done it on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock and blocked traffic off? I think there's enough blame to go around on this one. I was making some notes about immigration, and I just want to, again, drive home a point. Anyone, and to my mind, anyone desiring citizenship must speak fluent English. Pass a citizenship test with an 80% grade or better, consisting of U.S. history, the U.S. Constitution, our legislative system, and our other judicial system, and our laws, and have a spotless criminal record.
How about that for high school students?
Oh, I'm all for that, yeah. But children brought illegally are one thing, dreamers. But parents who enter illegally, knowing they were breaking the law, jumping over people waiting patiently in line for entry, should have no pathway to citizenship whatsoever.
Wow.
Well,
That would be good. I
now,
like that. That's good.
well, let me give you an example. What I was thinking about something, and well, it was my son. Happened to be in line for a Star Wars movie, the first night. So I changed it around a bit. How would you like to be at a Bruins playoff game, a movie theater for opening night for Star Wars, or in line for a much anticipated Lady Gaga spectacular? You've stood in line for 2 hours and a group forces its way into the front of the line and you are shut out. You would be outraged. You'd be screaming for the police. You remember them, the group you hate. Well, how do you think the folks who want to immigrate legally feel? Do you blame them? They're standing in line, doing it legally, and these other folks are coming across the border, and we don't do a bloody thing about it. The president's doing his best to get a wall up, to get more border guards, but yet, well, we can't do that.
And the thing is, these kids wait in line for hours. People waiting for immigration wait for years.
Patrick and Peter, two of my sons, were waiting for first night Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And 4 or 5 half-drunk, big, rough guys pushed their way right to the front of the line. They went right up and pushed people out of the way and stood there to buy tickets first. Well, no one took the bull by the horns and said, hey, the 5 of you, get out of there. Because they probably thought more of their life than they did of seeing Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But by the time it got to Patrick and Peter, guess what? Out of luck.
So didn't they have any policemen on those lines?
Obviously not. Or maybe the policeman didn't want to get involved. I don't know.
I think the theater should have called.
Yeah, I think, but I'm not sure the theater knew. Because this was outside going in.
No, but the thing is, they must have anticipated that there would be lines.
You know
there.
what? But then, if they did that, the police would have said, all right, well, we'll have a detail guy there for 4 hours. That'll be $195.
Oh, sure.
And the theater said, no, thanks. We'll work. He wouldn't be interested in a free box of popcorn, would he? If he's, yeah.
But I would probably have let the guys go through because it's not worth it.
You're right.
What always interests me is a few people can control a whole bunch of people. And this is, why doesn't the whole bunch of people gang up on those 3 or 4 people?
I used to Saturday nights usually, but sometimes Friday nights. During the summer, if the tide was right, John Phelan and I would go down the Cape Cod Canal and try to catch stripers. And the tide had to be right and all that. So we didn't do it every Saturday night or Friday night, but we did it a couple of times a month. Mm-hmm. So we fished and fished and fished one night, got nothing. So he said, you hungry? I said, yeah. He said, what do you say we stop for a small steak at this all-night place?
Okay.
It's okay. We're all standing in line. These 3 tough guys come in and go right to the front of the line. And some guy says, hey, the back of the line is back there. And one of the guys says, you going to do something about it? There was dead silence. 2 guys left. So they're saying to themselves, oh, we chased them out of there. Ha, ha, ha. Come back with baseball bats. And guess what? Those guys ran out of the place. And everybody was going to pitch in and help. But that's what has to happen. Somebody's got to take the bull by the horns, you know?
But I also seen what happened is when one person does object and stand up, the other people don't know them.
Yeah.
they let that guy stand up by himself, and he hasn't got a prayer.
Yeah. I had two guys. I went to a hockey game down in Hartford, the Bruins against the Hartford Whalers. These two guys came and sat behind us. And they were the two most vile, obnoxious, foul-mouthed, half drunk. I had one of my sons with me. I don't know, 10 or 12 years old. So they got up to get some more beers or something. And I said to the guy beside me, I said, we're going to do something about these guys? He goes, I'm not getting involved in it. He said, I came here to watch a hockey game. He said, that thing's going to have a bad ending. I said, yeah. I got up and I went and got a cop. And the cop came and he said to both of them, well, they sat there. So the cop went, 3 more cops came. Out the door they went.
Good.
You had to do something.
Well, fortunately, the organization who was running that game was prepared.
Yeah.
And Gillette, they do an excellent job, too.
They did, because it used to be like the Wild West up to Gillette, and they straightened it out.
Yeah.
Bob Kraft straightened it out. Same thing in the Fenway Park. In the Fenway Park, it was mayhem in there on a Friday night or a Saturday night. I mean, they're all drinking and raising hell and all kinds of language and all that. Then they hired guys, football players from Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern, big boys. They put blue blazers on them that said Boston Red Sox. They gave them radios, and there was like 4 teams of 3 guys each. And when there was a problem, the usher would just go, squad 1 to section 17, please. And the guys would say,
well, that's a case of the administration stepping up and doing what they should. And it makes it better for just about everybody.
Taking responsibility
That's
for
right.
running it properly. You're absolutely right. And 2 years later, it was, you could have held your daughter's tea party in there, and you wouldn't have heard a word. You wouldn't have heard boo. They straightened it right out. Jeremy Corbyn is the Socialist Party chairman in Great Britain. Socialist Party is not in great shape, but maybe you'll have an idea of why here. He has a great cure for homelessness. Buy a home for everyone. Now, what could be better than that? That cures homelessness, right?
Well, I think they tried that in several places in the United States. But the thing is, what is wrong with homelessness? I mean, I've known people in the generation before me, they didn't have homes, they lived in apartments. They're
talking about street people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why street people are street people, and some street people are not responsible and will not take care of a home, so you're just wasting your time and money on them, and some of them don't want it.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And also, a lot of people are homeless because they want to be homeless.
Well, but we have to say not all.
And no, not all at all. No, in fact, some of them because of drugs or alcohol or mental issues are incapable of holding a job, renting an apartment, even living in a group home. They can't manage that. You know, I used to do volunteer work with the homeless. 60% of the homeless are alcoholics. 60% are drug addicts. 80% are both. And then you throw in those with mental problems. And you get a picture of homelessness. And I used to talk to these people every Monday night. That was my job with the ministry that I was with, was to talk to them. And I said, well, yeah, you guys, though, you guys give out food, you guys give out clothing. I just talk. He said, you got the most important job of all. He says, you very possibly are the only sane voice those people are going to hear that day.
That's right. Well, that week.
I think he overestimated my abilities a little there, but nonetheless. But I was trying to find out, can we help you get into a shelter? Can we help you find a home that will take you? Do you need to go to a hospital? I mean, look at the sores on your arm. You need to be treated. And I heard a lot of life stories. And I've said this before, I'm repeating myself, folks. It's a sign of age. But they have told me, when I said, how did this all start? I was 14 years old, and it started with Budweiser or marijuana, or both.
And now I think it's 10 years old.
Yeah. And I said, 14 was the magic age. Okay. In talking with them, the vast majority had been abused. One woman, this guy pulled up his shirt and showed me the scars. One woman used to throw boiling water at him to make him calm down and behave. He said, I ran away when I was 9. They caught me. I ran away when I was 11. Never went back again. And his story is too long to tell, but dreadful. Dreadful. Molly Schuyler. Now, there's a name I'll bet you don't know much about.
You're right.
Guess what? Molly won her 3rd Wing Bowl in Philadelphia in front of 20,000 fans. A record at the Wells Fargo Center. Molly downed 501 chicken wings in 30 minutes.
That's gross. I think that's so gross. I think those eating contests are terrible. When people around the world are starving and they're having...
I know.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, now finally, maybe if I go quickly, I can read off the last bunch of PC outrages we have.
Okay.
According to the new U.S. Army manual, soldiers should avoid making derogatory criticism about the Taliban, advocating women's rights, any criticism of pedophilia, directing criticism against Afghans, mentioning homosexuality and homosexual conduct, or anything to do with Islam. Those are all subjects in the U.S. Army manual that they should not be discussing.
So what are they fighting for?
Who knows? Obama banned all U.S. government agencies from producing any training materials that link Islam with terrorism. Authorities are cracking down on public expressions of Christian faith. Yet atheists put up a billboard in Times Square showing a picture of Jesus on the cross, underneath a picture of Santa with the tagline, "Keep the merry, dump the myth." Number 4, according to Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, it is illegal for employers to discriminate against criminals because it has a disproportionate impact on minorities. Oh, that makes sense, huh? More than 75% of babies born in Detroit are to unmarried women. Yet it is politically incorrect to suggest there is something wrong with that.
Or to have them have abortions.
Yeah. University of Minnesota Duluth has initiated a program of online videos, billboards, and lectures to raise awareness of white privilege.
That's weird.
Well, the whites shouldn't be privileged. They shouldn't be lording it over us. Chris Matthews of MSNBC is said it is racist for conservatives to use the word Chicago. He, of all people, should be instructing us how to construct our sentences or our thoughts. A judge in North Carolina ruled unconstitutional for the state to offer license plates that say "Choose Life" on them. Volunteer chaplains for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department have been banned from using the name of Jesus on government property. All over the country, this may be my favorite. All over the country, the term manhole is being replaced by utility hole or maintenance hole. In England, the traditional dessert, spotted dick pudding, has been given the new title, Spotted Richard, so not to offend. A school in Seattle renamed Easter eggs to spring spheres to avoid giving offense to folks who do not celebrate Easter.
So not only are we losing freedom of the press, we're losing freedom of speech. We can't say these things anymore.
Freedom of religion. It's great. Well, now here's something terrible that, the president of ESPN quit. John Skipper. And John said, well, I'm a cocaine addict. However, there's more to the story. He was interviewed, and he admitted that he was being extorted by his former dealer that was going to expose him and was blackmailing him. I thought cocaine was illegal. And why didn't he go to the police department with this? Oh. Two Boston cops under probe by Internal Affairs. A deputy superintendent, a female, and a lieutenant, a male, were involved in an off-duty incident currently under investigation. A female superintendent and a male lieutenant working together. What could possibly be going on there? I wonder if it's got to do with sex.
I wonder if it's any of their business.
Well, I think it's a morale deal, but I think if it was just pure sex, I don't think it's none of the police department's business.
Right.
But when there's a breakup or something, well, then you start shooting darts at one another, and it becomes a morale issue because, well, he treats, a certain bunch of people one way, and she treats them another way, based upon this ugly breakup they had. And I'm not a big fan of mixing men and women in combat roles in the Army. Okay? Because I've heard too many stories about what's really going on in today's Army. And stuff like this bothers me too, because these are high-ranking officials. Mm-hmm. These are the last people in the world that should be doing this, if in fact that's what it's all about. But, which is why I didn't mention their names, because I don't think we should be doing that. Bobby DeLeo, the Speaker of the House, has downplayed the controversial use of non-disclosure agreements. In other words, when an employee alleges that a senator or a rep did something to them or tried to hit on them or something, then they took moves to fire that person. But they usually gave him a walking away present of money, but they made him sign a non-disclosure agreement of why they left. And it's got to do with some new tough anti-sexual harassment guidelines, and they want to keep the secret non-disclosures. Bobby DeLeo is the Speaker of the House, and he's behind the move to hang on to these things. Did Speaker DeLeo ever hear of transparency? These people are working for us, these bozos. Well, that's as far as we're going to get, folks. We've been given the old signal that the curtain has got to come down. So, this is Monday, the 19th of March that we're taping this. And the good news is, it looks like Wednesday and Thursday is going to be our 4th straight northeaster. Now, the severity of which has not been defined yet.
Or disclosed.
Or disclosed, yeah. Maybe Bobby DeLeo's a closet weatherman. He's not disclosing anything. But anyway, I want you all to stay warm, stay safe, let the kids do the snow shoveling. And we expect you back here in 2 weeks for our next show.
Very good.
That's an order. Good night.
Good night.